The art of saying nothing. How stillness becomes strength. There's a moment, right before you speak, when you feel the pull. The urge to react, to defend, to explain, to retaliate. That split second is where power lives. And most people give it away without even knowing. We live in a world obsessed with noise. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone has something to say. Social media has turned silence into suspicion. If you're not commenting, posting, or explaining, people assume you're hiding something. We've come to equate constant talking with confidence, and stillness with weakness. But here's the paradox. The most powerful people are not the loudest. They are not the ones constantly speaking. They are the ones who've mastered the art of saying nothing, and in that nothingness, they become unshakable. Because silence is not absence. It's presence. And in that presence lies a strength that most people will never understand. There's a story often told in Stoic circles about a Roman philosopher who was publicly insulted during a forum. Rather than responding, he simply looked at the man, nodded slightly, and walked away. Later, when asked why he didn't say anything, he replied, "Why should I let him decide when I speak? It wasn't weakness. It wasn't fear. It was wisdom, power." Stillness is not passivity. It's a deliberate choice not to feed the fire. It is resistance without aggression, strength without spectacle. And that's a hard lesson to learn, especially in a society that rewards the most reactive voices. We are conditioned to respond quickly, emotionally, publicly. We're told to stand our ground, to clap back, to never let someone else win the argument. But in doing so, we often give away our inner peace for the illusion of victory. The truth is, not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every insult requires a rebuttal. Not every moment demands our words. Sometimes, the most devastating answer is no answer at all. Silence is uncomfortable for most people because it forces them to sit with themselves. To be still is to confront your own emotions, your anger, your insecurity, your need for validation. When someone disrespects you and you don't respond, you're left alone with the tension. And it burns. But that burn is transformation. When you learn to sit with it, without reacting, without venting, without justifying, you begin to reclaim a part of yourself that was always yours, but rarely protected: your self-control. There is a psychological principle known as the gap. It's the space between stimulus and response. Most people collapse that gap instantly. They react out of habit, out of ego, out of fear. But in that fleeting pause, if you learn to expand it, you'll discover your true power. That's where growth happens. That's where mastery lives. You don't control what others say or do, but you do control your response. And when you stop responding out of reflex, you start responding with intention. Or sometimes, not at all. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is action, refined, focused, potent. Think of a lion. It doesn't roar at every sound in the jungle. It doesn't waste energy on small threats. It waits. It watches. It conserves its power for the right moment. And that restraint, born of confidence, not fear, is what makes it the king. The same applies to us. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every battle is worth fighting. When you learn the art of saying nothing, you begin to see how much of your energy was being spent on things that don't deserve you. Silence is clarity. It cuts through the noise. It reveals who you are when no one's watching. It exposes what truly matters. Because when you stop talking, when you stop explaining yourself to people who've already made up their minds, you realize something profound. Your peace is not up for debate. There is a kind of dignity that comes from restraint, a quiet power that flows from knowing you could speak, but choosing not to. That kind of self-command is rare, and rare things are valuable. When someone insults you, and you don't react, they feel their own echo. They're left with their own projection. Your silence becomes a mirror, and in it, they see themselves more clearly than if you had shouted back. When someone disrespects you, and you don't stoop to their level, you create contrast. You elevate the energy. You show, without a single word, that your self-respect is not contingent on their validation. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And it's not easy. It takes practice. It takes pain. You have to go through the fire of wanting to respond, to lash out, to explain yourself, and still choose stillness. But when you do, when you truly embody it, you become untouchable. Silence is also protection. In the quiet, you can hear the whispers of your own intuition. You can sort truth from noise. You can hear the difference between what you feel and what you're told to feel. Words have power, yes, but silence sharpens perception. It makes you a better observer, a more intentional thinker. In a world of emotional reactivity, your calm becomes a superpower. This is why so many great minds, from Marcus Aurelius to Viktor Frankl, spoke about detachment, about the virtue of measured response, about the nobility of silence, not because they were weak, but because they were wise. Stillness doesn't mean you're disengaged. It means you're discerning. You're no longer handing out your energy like free samples to people who haven't earned it. You're no longer reacting to every bump in the road like it's the end of the world. You're choosing your peace over your pride. And in that choice, you become stronger than anyone who tries to provoke you. The art of saying nothing also invites a deeper kind of communication, one that isn't bound by words. When you walk away instead of arguing, when you don't respond to the bait, when you hold your ground in silence, you are sending a message louder than any words could speak. You're saying, I know who I am. You're saying, my energy is sacred. You're saying, I don't owe you an explanation. And people will feel it. They may not like it. They may call you arrogant, cold, passive-aggressive, but that's only because your silence forces them to face themselves, and most people are terrified of that. But the ones who understand will respect you more. They'll see that your stillness is not weakness, but depth, that your silence is not empty, but full of meaning, that you are not ignoring them, you are prioritizing your peace. In a world addicted to reaction, the ones who rise above are the ones who respond from stillness. They don't need to prove themselves to every critic. They don't need to argue with every fool. They don't need to broadcast every emotion. They know their worth, and it speaks. Even in silence. If you want to master yourself, begin here, in the quiet, in that moment between impulse and action, in the heat of provocation. When your ego wants to roar, choose stillness instead. Because the art of saying nothing is not about muting your voice forever. It's about learning when your voice is truly needed, and when your silence is louder than any words could ever be. And when you learn that, when you embody that, no one can pull you out of your peace. No one can hijack your energy. No one can define your reality but you. That's not silence. That's sovereignty.